Stewardship is a path of many steps. The steps that woodland owners take are linked to their goals, values, and their vision for their land. In Baldwin, Maine, northwest of Sebago Lake, a community of woodland owners is taking shape.
We highly recommend using a forest management plan because it's good to put your goals on paper and have a discussion about what the condition of your forest is, what your goals are, plan on paper how you're going to get there, and maybe even talk about what the potentials are for income and those sorts of things ahead of time, and then have that in black and white to work off of when the harvester shows up. That way it helps minimize the confusion between the landowner, the forester, and the harvester about what the eventual goals are and what the expectations should be.
A forester will come onto your woodlot and talk with the landowner, and if you want to hire the forester to write a management plan for you, the forester will look at the whole woodlot and divide it into all the different stands of timber that are growing on the property. He will make recommendations and he will write about all the different species that are in every one of those stands. He will look at the timber growth, he'll look at how the trees are growing and what the health is, and he'll also make an inventory and tell you how much is growing there and when it ought to be thinned in the future. And most importantly, he'll give you dates or a timeline for the future when projects need to be done. If you wanted to thin your white pine on a seed year when the trees are dropping their seeds so that you scarify the white pine seed into the soil to help the regeneration of white pine onto your woodlot. He can make recommendations for that.
I like to really listen to what the landowner's interested in. It's not always management of timber in terms of earning income. Sometimes they're interested in wildlife or improving other aspects of their forest for their recreational opportunities or things like that. And I like to really listen to what they're interested in and try and create a plan or maybe a harvest plan that works for them but also benefits their forest in other ways.
The first management plan we did was in 1985, again with the idea that this was still young forest. The early work was mostly harvesting firewood and pulpwood.
Trying to figure out where to start in forest management can be pretty daunting. That's one of the things I'm here for as your district forester. We're really your free forestry resource here in Maine. I'm your tax dollars at work. Truly, you've already paid for the service. You might as well use it. And what I can do is come out and help you wrap your brain around what's happened on your lot. Our focus tends to be on goal setting, and one of the most important parts of your forest management plan is what do you want to do with your forest? It's yours, and you need to decide what your suite of goals are. Once we pick your goals, I can use my forestry education to try and figure out where your forest is at this point in time, and then talk to you generally about what we can recommend to do to your forest over time to take it from where it is to meet your goals in the eventuality.
I'm firmly committed to working with a forester. I think that the land has benefited, I've benefited in general, but I've worked with more than one. You get different ideas, somewhat different approaches from it, but I think the advantage to having a forester working with you is such that it makes it virtually an essential to continue to have the kind of work done that you really would be happy that you've done. What we want to do is to have some crop tree release, do some thinning, influence what's going to be coming up in the understory in terms of species.
One of the benefits of using a forest management plan is it can provide a future benefit or a benefit for future generations, in that long-term planning tends to lead to long-term land tenure. If you've got a 20 or a 40 or 100-year plan for your property and you're working that as you go, that's going to trickle down into the next generation and the next generation, and you'll have this series of historical documents where they can look back and see what's happened, what were we trying to achieve, what was Grandpa's vision for this land, and are we still on the same track?
I'd like to understand better the specifics of it, why this particular species of tree, why this particular type of understory, why you want to cut at certain times versus others. My own personal preference trends towards the older growth, so I would probably need to be reminded of like what needs to be thinned and when to promote the future tree growth that and mix of species that you want.
The best forest management plans are living documents. They're dynamic, just like forests. Forests change over time. There are unforeseen conditions. Sometimes they're natural conditions, sometimes they're market conditions, sometimes they're social conditions. Things happen within families that own woodlots. And ideally, a forest management plan is a document that can be continuously updated to meet new goals or new objectives.
So I would diversify a little bit in its uses and maybe a little bit more mix between open space. But largely the forest, that you see here in pretty much the same vein.
If the forester writes a management plan that meets the objectives and incorporates the objectives of the landowner into the management plan, then they have a document that'll go ahead for years, and it'll form a bond between the landowner and the forester whereby they can work many different projects, from timber harvesting to maybe weeding and thinning the woodlot. But it's something that'll go on for many years to come.
I think one of the big misconceptions about using a forest management plan is that someone is going to come, maybe at your behest, but tell you what you have to do with your property. And a point that I try and drive home for landowners all the time is you don't have to do anything with your forest. It's about what you want to do with your forest, what your goals are, and your forester should help you achieve those goals. The forester works for you, not the other way around.